So I'm really, really happy and really grateful for Neve for joining me this evening just to talk about her journey with me, but particularly with IEMT. So Neve, how are you?
I'm doing good, thank you.
Good.
Thanks.
So just tell me a little bit about you know, kind of how you found me, why you were looking for that, and how we ended up working together.
Yeah, so I'd kind of known of yourself for a few years now, and attended a couple of events in and around Glasgow and also online. It was really, I think, like word of mouth that I'd found yourself, and then just through Instagram even. I
Okay.
think when I'd started following other kind of health and wellness practitioners, like your name popped up, and at that time there wasn't many in Glasgow, and so I'd kind of, I checked your stuff out, and there was a few events, and I came along and just found that I think your work was very, trying to think of the right word, but it just kind of connected on a way that I perhaps hadn't had with
Yeah.
many other people, and it was very thorough, and it was just an avenue that I was kind of looking to explore. And then a lot of the practices that you'd kind of done were new to me, and I suppose there was like an educational part in there as well. Um, so yeah, and that was kind of, I think, when I came back around this time for IEMT, that was why I'd
Like
kind of looked at yourself, that there was that sort of familiarity with you.
yeah, a little bit of
And so
trust and kind of, yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah,
having, because it's difficult, isn't it? When you kind of facing stuff like that, you think, oh my God, who, where, who, why, what's available?
yeah,
And often that's kind of why people, it's a nice way to get in touch with people rather than just diving right in. Um, so why were you looking for, what came out? Because I know we discussed like what options were available for you, and we decided that probably some of the stuff that was coming in and IMT would probably be really helpful. So why were you looking? Because you were like, oh, you know, why were you looking for
yeah.
someone to?
Yeah, it was, I mean, through summer. So at the time when I'd reached out, I was working at a summer camp, and it was my second year doing it. And the job itself was stressful, but I think it was a feeling that had come up for the second summer in a row where I was like, winter's coming up, I don't have work lined up after. And I felt like I was just kind of repeating this cycle of like not getting anywhere.
Hmm,
Um, and so I thought, right, okay, I've got to kind of do something about this because there was loads of anxiety and like old patterns coming up for me. And I thought, because I'd been to talking therapy before, and
hmm.
as much as that did help, I felt that there was something just deeper under the
Yeah,
surface that maybe needed like to
something's
be
still
brought up.
niggling away, and yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, like a core belief that was really in there. And I'd heard of IEMT before and like similar therapies. I'd done my dissertation on something similar.
Yeah.
So I knew that it worked, and I was looking for something that was more holistic based,
Hmm.
Um, and then obviously, I'd seen that you were doing IEMT, and I think you'd done that like free kind of taster session, and
That's right. Yeah, we did like a little
went to that.
informative session, didn't we, just to see if
Yeah,
it kind of fit, what people needed. So yeah.
yeah, and just I think through that, it was able. I think IEMT was able. It was appropriate for the kind of deep-rooted personal stuff that I was kind of working through, stuff that, as we discovered in the sessions, like I hadn't thought about for years and didn't really
Yeah.
know it was there, but
The
that,
feelings were kind of coming up,
yeah,
but yeah.
yeah, all the kind of
Yeah.
core beliefs were attached to that anxiety that I was feeling in the summer, which,
Yeah.
it was all related.
Okay. So how did you find the sessions in themselves? Because we did kind of longer sessions with a bit of kind of deeper relaxation towards the end.
I love them. I thought, one thing that obviously, it does come up, they can be quite tiring just because it
Mm.
takes a lot out of you, but that wasn't because, there was anything wrong with the session. It's just the nature of the work.
Yeah,
Um,
it's exhausting. You're bringing up a lot of emotions and things that you don't really want to feel, to be fair, because they're not
yeah,
very nice. So it's kind of like,
but
giving that
that's,
space is nice,
yeah,
isn't it?
but that was exactly what it was. It was the space to feel that, and it was just,
Mm.
it felt dead comfortable and homely, and it was an environment that I felt like I could come out of my shell in that way. Otherwise,
Yeah,
if I was sitting in a therapist's office, it might feel a bit like, that disconnect. But it was like sitting with an old friend and just having a chat about it.
that's
And
nice.
it
I'm
felt
pleased
so
to
much
hear that.
more kind of relaxed, which I
Yeah,
think in turn kind of brought more stuff out, which was nice.
that's great. And so, what has kind of changed up for you? How have you felt since the sessions? Because it's not been that long, has it?
Yeah, not at all. I know that one of the kind of biggest differences after the first session, I felt so much more positive
Mm.
and for a much longer time. I after kind of doing some therapies, I might feel okay for a couple of days and then it'll go back to square one.
Yeah,
Whereas it was a much more like prolonged experience. A lot of stuff did come up. There was a lot of journaling, there was a lot of tears, all of that stuff. Because as we spoke about, it can integrate for quite a long time.
mm.
And we've worked together for 2 sessions, and I think after both, different things have come up, but it's definitely been there's been a lot of clearing happening. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? A lot of kind of stuff that was under the covers there was kind of, rearing its head. But again, you know, it's been nice. I think it's been good because you're able to shift a lot of it, and I felt that shift. It's kind of like every day I wake up and I'm like, oh, am I on a different planet? Like, who is this person? When you're like, oh
who's this
wow,
positive person that exists
yeah,
now
yeah,
rather than, and I think, I think for me, what it does, it's not some positivity, yeah, but it's more resilience. I think it gives you a little bit more
yeah,
capacity to, to kind of, I know I'm feeling a bit like this today, but I've got it. I've got my journaling, I've got all the things that I learned
absolutely,
before. I'm a human, I've had other experiences, I know how to process this, but it's kind of
yeah.
giving you access to that space where you're like, oh, I just feel a bit wobbly today, and that's okay. Because like shit
And
happens. Yeah, and that's just the way it goes.
today would be a good example of that. It hasn't, as much as I say positivity, it hasn't all been roses. Like,
Mm,
today I'm feeling a bit like frustrated and annoyed with myself and whatever, but rather than dipping back into that like self-depreciative,
mm,
headspace that I might have done before. I think I said this to you last time, is that, there'll be days when I wake up and I'm not feeling great, but rather than reaching for, you know, all of the kind of old tools, I'll journal, I'll meditate, I'll try
yeah,
something kind of creative, and that's been one thing that has come up quite a lot, is that I've been trying to get back in touch with like my creative practice. Um,
yeah, it's
Something that was
brilliant.
always like, it was a something that I would just leave to last, whereas now I'm trying to like actually incorporate it like into my day and into my life.
Yeah, that's
Which
really
I
good
think
because
is something we probably like unlocked a little bit. Do you know what I mean? It was
yeah,
one of those things. So yeah.
and you are, that's kind of a purpose for you, isn't it? Is to be,
Mm.
creative in whatever way that comes, and I think that's really nice to put you back in touch with things that have not necessarily been lost, but just kind of gently pushed under the covers a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah, that's
yeah.
good. That's good. I'm pleased to hear it. So if I could give you kind of, give you one word like from before when we started working and how you feel now. So what would be the one word before?
Or think definitely lost. It was,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. And
And
so
now
now,
now I think that resilience word comes up quite a lot. It's definitely, I always considered myself resilient, but I think now I'm resilient in a different way. Rather than like pushing through it for the sake of just like chucking mud, now it's like oh,
yeah,
I have the proper tools in the box to kind of go and deal with
yeah.
it. So yeah,
Yeah, I think that resilience, it sometimes feel like, oh, we can handle anything and we have to, whereas it's more a bit like, actually I can choose the days where I don't really want to handle it because it's just not okay. And like actually
absolutely.
knowing what's going on internally a little bit more rather
Yep,
than being this, well, everyone else does it and I've got to do it as
yep.
well. Actually, it's finding what's right for you. And that's really, really good, Niamh. So that's great to hear you doing really well. Thank you so much for spending the time with me. And I'm just, yeah, hopefully looking forward to seeing some more of your creativity popping out here, there, and everywhere.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it'll be, yeah, we'll see where it goes.
We'll
But yeah,
see. Be
hope so.
interesting. Thanks very much, Niamh. Take care.
Thank you. Cheers. Bye bye.